Ward said he wasn't feeling too good. I don't be able to make it. You have to get
We don't have to have video.
We don't.
It's not a law. It made us door. The phone trip and so now the Landry. Oh, they to the beach.
Pray with you, please. My Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening just praising you, thanking you for all that you do for us, Lord, the way you take care of us and provide for us. Even through the heat and the floods that are going on elsewhere, Lord, we know you're in control. We just pray for your protection over everyone involved. Be with us tonight as we discuss the business of the city of Perry. Help us to make good decisions, fair decisions, and decisions that will continue to lead the city upward. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done.
Councilmember Landry,
Here.
Councilmember Woodall,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jackson, Mayor Hampton. Here.
We read by title only. Ordinance 1029, 1030, 1031.
Councilmember Bryant.
Yes.
Councilmember Landry,
Yes.
Councilmember Woodall.
Yes.
Mayor Hampton.
Yes. At this time, we will receive a request from the general public. Anyone wishing to address the council will be given 5 minutes. Groups will be given 10. Service best.
Good evening. My name is Andy Jackson. I live at 411 Plantation Road. I've got a brief comment on your next agenda item, which is commercial solid waste services. As a businessman here in Perry, I was a user of Waste Pro Management Services for over 20 years. I have less than a stellar opinion of their customer service. To begin with, after being a customer for 7 years, I asked them to move a dumpster 100 yards over so that we could combine services with our new location. And I was told that I needed to sign a new contract with them. Okay, we were going to be there over the term of the contract, so I had no problem with that. But the next thing I noticed is I had a $3 a month invoicing fee show up on the bill, just so that I could receive a letter that said I had an invoice so I could keep track of paper records. Okay, I didn't have any control over that, and that was their way of increasing the cost of the contract. Third item is when the garbage quit getting picked up. And you couldn't get anybody on the phone. And you call and all they do is ring and ring and ring and ring. And then when you finally did get somebody, they wanted to charge an extra $25 to come out that week to pick up garbage like they were supposed to have done anyway, as per the contract. The last one that brought me up here. I have to calm down when I think about this. Because they started this over past the dumpster thing. Now, I lived right next to that dumpster. But I knew at 5 o'clock every morning, when they came and show up to pick up my garbage. Or didn't. And so I started getting these $25 extra a month or per week fees for being over the past. So I called them up one day and talked to them about it. Finally got somebody on the phone. And I was assured that the driver had sent a picture to their supervisor, and he had confirmed that, yes, my dumpster was overfilled at 5 o'clock in the morning, which I knew to be a lie. So I promised him at that point that if there was ever a chance to review this contract with the city of Cary, I'd come and put my 2 bits in, and just on the basis of poor customer service, do anything but get Waste Pro back in here to do their commercial waste disposal. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anyone else from the general public wishing to speak? Moving on. Bids.
The city reserves the right to reject any and all bids. The city reserves the right to select the bidder, which it determines is the best interest of the city. Any errors in bid submissions are the responsibility of the bidder. The city is not required to find errors in any bid submissions. Danielle, you said you'd be the secretary. Okay, first one's from Deep South Sanitation. I got bubble wrap in here too. All right. Write brief description of the project or project you're bidding on, commercial solid waste. Please provide the whole annual amount for the project here. This is what we set up as the cover sheet to make this process more streamlined. And it's going to be $409,220.64 annually for our customers. Pass these out later on. Some of pops, sanitation. Now, you got to see that cover sheet. Of course, that was added 2 weeks after the bid went out. Yes, please make this offer, service. Over 6 million. Procurement. Tommy, where's that cover page?
I won't savor some time if you're looking. We didn't put that, the yearly amount in there because of what was the final number on the yearly amount. The last numbers we got had Steinhatchee and had different addresses that wasn't even in the city. So when we looked at it, which one of those do you go off of?
I sent the newer one with the revised stating that.
So that's what we didn't do it.
But that's okay. I can do a spreadsheet and sort out just like Waste Pro did. So
Did you not get the new one that she sent out?
I'm not sure, I don't collect those, but, we went off the bid that y'all approved. And so that's what we went with because of, there was some discrepancies on,
that list that was sent to you all from the last bid.
you know, none, how do you bid on that when you don't know if it's true or not?
And then they sent me another one and then I sent the revised one out to everybody, but I guess it got lost in all the emails because when you have 15 different lists they keep giving, and I did ask for their 6 months work to audit their franchise fees, I've still not. heard that. So what are you looking at, Kelly?
Compare like it's 10 yards one time a week.
But that's how we got in trouble last time.
We'll have to put it all in that spreadsheet. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So you've got, the other one doesn't have it broke down like that. So you're. Dang it. You'll do all right. Tabulation contents. Letters. And this does not have that cover letter either.
Section 11.
Section 11. Based on today's pricing and current service levels, 1.7 million for the 5-year service agreement. So I guess we need to divide that by 5. Again, we'll have to go back and do spreadsheets and work all this out. That's divided by, that's. So. And the other thing that we're doing, so much for the garbage bid, and we'll bring back to you staff recommendation next meeting. And we got our recommendation for software, if you want to move on to that. We like GovTech, Edmunds, and Stephanie. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Not really.
They get tired of me talking. Well, we had a committee of about 5-6 people. Danielle, who's a heavy with the work order part, she started as a cashier and has 15 different positions here, so she knows what's going on. Phyllis, another one that's been here for 30 years. She works and knows what's going on, our needs. I oversaw it. Stephanie had several different positions as well. And so these are the best people because they're the users. They understand the different aspects of HR, accounts payable, receivables, cashiers, as well as the work orders. And Jamie was also involved because he's very tech savvy. And so we've looked a lot, and all these are piggybacks. You can piggyback off any of these cities, these big Harrison and GovTech were the 2 that we had it eliminated too. And Harris does own TBS, the one that we're currently using, but they've only got two in the two cities in the state of Florida, and GovTech has like 30. And we've heard really good things about them. And either way, you'd be getting a Lincoln or a Cadillac, in my opinion. They're both good companies. The prices are comparable. But we just like Edmunds look a little bit more user friendly than the others. And there's really cool things like the guys in the field when they're, digging something up, they can take a picture of what they've replaced, and all that goes to our new Diamond Map stuff, and it all can interface. And you've got photographic documentation on every call and stuff. So it's these systems are pretty slick what they have nowadays. So anything I left out said? Any questions?
We're ready to move.
If you want us to,
My motion is to take recommendation and let's move along.
Councilmember Brian,
Yes.
Councilmember Landry,
Yes.
Councilmember Whitmore.
Yes.
Mayor Hampton.
Yes.
Mr. Brian, does that include the hardware we did as well to improve the hardware system?
Whatever you,
That's what we said last time.
yeah.
Making sure it's clear.
We don't have a dollar.
it's, we'll have to do that later.
Probably gonna be a year before it's fully implemented.
What do we have dollars?
Total.
What?
We do have a dollar amount. For the GovTech, it's right at $150,000 to implement the new software.
And then it'll be a reoccurring about 71,000 a year. And we're currently paying about 27,000 a year, but this is so much slicker. It's well worth it, and it'll save a lot of man hours and paper and a lot of stuff. Even fuel, because these people don't have to keep driving back to the office. They can get their next calls right on their tablets and such.
Thank you. Good work.
Now we try.
I'm going to move on to general business. Agenda item 6A. Jamie Driggers, FDOT. Discuss state of Florida taking Jefferson Street over again. And grants the city. Mr. Driggers.
Appreciate the introduction, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Once again, my name is James Riggers for the DOT. I'm the District 2 Planning and Environmental Management Engineer for the district. For a regional perspective, I represent 18 counties, 4 of which are urban, 14 are rural.
Can you move your mind?
Yes, ma'am. Now I just wanted to come before you today to talk about opportunities. I completely understand based on conversation with staff, where the city would like to move, but I would at least like to offer the opportunity to talk for a hand of exploratory pursuit. I know the vision that the city originally had to ultimately build out the downtown community. I'll say this because I work with 18 counties. I have a lot of experience here recently. IIJ, BIL, those are the Infrastructure and Job Investments Act. There were many opportunities that came out through grants. The advantage that rural communities have is a lot of times based on the demographics of the communities, there's a waiver of to match. Once again, because I'm working in such a broad area, there are a lot of different types of grant opportunities out there that would align with what the city's original vision was. I know the city put a lot of effort and energy into that, which if they're a collaborative effort, that's why the original transfer occurred. So before we went to a formal, reversion of, and I say this, the impact is not just to the city of DOT as well, it will affect the county. So I think there'd be a further conversation there that needs to be had, but I would at least like to offer the opportunity to the city to partner and take that original vision and explore it a little bit further. See what opportunities could potentially come to fruition based on networks that I've established here in the last year. That's what I wanted to offer. From there, I just want to make myself available if there are any questions, specific concerns, that I definitely be able to respond accordingly.
What would the process look like if there even is one?
There's probably the first opportunity is we would explore the state grant.
Oh, I'm gonna take the road back.
Well,
I mean, when me and you talked, it was near impossible. I want them to get that point across.
I don't want to say impossible. I would be candid in the sense that I've been doing this for 22 years and I have not seen a reversion of that agreement. I am passionate about rural communities. As you can tell, I mean, I grew up in a rural community. I understand the economic benefit. I understand the vision for where the city is wanting to go. A lot of investment was made in that original transfer. I mean, the thousands of dollars in the right of way, the $1,000 in the signage. At a national level, we know once we get a roadway off our inventory, huge effort, huge undertaking. It was done with a vision partnership. And I'm here today to try to keep that conversation alive. I know one of the conversations we had as well, you know, there are grants that DOT controls. And I've actually brought Mr. Paul Webb with me. He's over the program within DOT. When it comes to a point of life, you know, that the pavement needs to be rehabilitated or even safety-based issues relative to sidewalk, things of that nature. The Scott Municipality Program is a program that's available that would address that need. But in the immediate, the type of grants that I would look to pursue would be the ones that ultimately stick to the original theme of what we call complete streets, which is basically draw that community investment. So to answer your question, next step would be I would, as a cordial opportunity, I would reach out to the county and just because it has an impact on them as well to undo. It would involve a formal request, and then we'd ultimately take into consideration. Once again, I've been doing this for 22 years. I have never seen one undone. So I don't know the full scale, just being honest there. But as far as pavement condition, you know, safety-based top needs, Scott Municipality would be an opportunity. We also have a program called Transportation Alternative. Maybe there's an opportunity we can do some parts of the bigger plan. But my idea would be to reach out to those networks and have a conversation based on the demographics of the community, based on the original vision, and just see through these new grant programs what opportunities may exist. Realistically, if it doesn't come to fruition, I totally understand the position of the city, but I would like to try that first, considering the amount of time and energy and resources. I mean, the city alone, you know, looking at the plan that was presented, it's amazing. I mean, the vision you all had. I work with a lot of rural communities, and you're years ahead in the sense of where you were trying to get to. I get the issues of now totally. I just don't want to throw away everything that's been invested today. Is what I'm here to present, what I'm here to offer.
One of the visions was to remove balconies. I mean, that which we cannot do. So I don't know how council deals with that, but that was the reason we took over Jefferson Street.
And maybe it's a change in that vision. Maybe it's a refresh of, you know, where you were trying to get to.
New sidewalks.
Sidewalks, bulb out, street calming. I've seen communities, and once again, we call it complete streets. It's basically a vision of drawing folks to the downtown community. I've seen there's some very good success story around the state where folks have implemented. The opportunity you have right now with having control of that roadway is if you want to close it for a festival, you don't have to ask DOT for anything. That's a huge draw. You know, the ability to front space, you know, a lot of restaurants like to have outdoor seating. There's things that you can do as a municipality that the Department of Transportation cannot do. That's the biggest opportunity there. You know, maybe we need to reinvest that. And I'm willing to put resources into trying to DOT, the city of Perry, Taylor County, we've had a strong relationship. I want to maintain that. I'm willing to put everything I can into to try to keep your vision going. I totally get things may have changed along the line, but that vision still holds true for these rural communities, you know, trying to keep the economic side of things moving forward.
So are you proposing to meet with us at a different time for discussion?
Yes, I would offer that staff and I, based on networks I have, that we engage and tell our story of a vision and try to gain that sponsorship through these sister agencies and bring an opportunity back to life. And once again, the advantage a rural community has is that many of the matches are waived, which means you don't have to put up anything. You know, if you ask for, I'm making up a number, you ask for $1 million, it's typically an award of $1 million. Just an opportunity that's out there. A lot of money's pumped into it. Ironically, I follow a lot of these grants, so I'm seeing the billions of dollars stacked up. Unfortunately, our rural communities just don't have the level of resource that some of our urban centers do. And of course, I'm usually equity based. I give my attention to both. But I'm definitely passionate when I see a rural community that's on the edge of having a vision. If there's anything to push it over. And just understanding, where you originally trying to get to, what can I do to help us get to that finish line.
When that was proposed, we had a very active Main Street organization, which we no longer have. They've disbanded. That's my understanding. And when it was presented to me, I was not on the council at the time. I think I still would have voted against it even if I had been. We don't have the money to maintain our own streets, let alone a state road. And that is a state road. That's a main thoroughfare through there. But when it was presented to me, it said, oh, it's going to enhance traffic movement. I don't see it. You're narrowing down that side street, and I don't see how that enhances traffic movement. But so there are a lot of negatives that I've seen. I understand that when I saw the picture of the sidewalk with the cover over, that looked great, and I'm sure there are some positives, but can we afford it? Like I said, we can't even afford to fix our own streets, let alone the state road. So you got some work to do if you want to sell.
Like I said, I just wanted to carry on the conversation. I completely get that, if we can't get to a solution there, ultimately, the board it'd be a more formal request, ultimately, to avoid that original agreement. I just, as a courtesy, would understand implications to the county as well as that burden of cost that was initially absorbed to support that transfer. Just want to be honest, I don't know what, I hate to even scale the magnitude, but it's very expensive, that process went through. Yeah. I'm just trying to here to salvage as much as I can. Like I say, I'm passionate about rural communities. Give it 110%. If we can't find traction, we can't find traction. But if we don't try, we don't, we're where we are today. And still going to be in the same cause effect. But there's, like I say, there's a few backup opportunities there within DOT of things that may be plausible that we can present back to the commission as well. That maybe your interim metrics that you get you where you want to be.
Don't forget about us.
I promise you, I won't.
Just
I've
come
grown-
back and see us again.
Absolutely. If you're fine with it, I'd like to reach out to staff and we can talk through potential opportunities and then kind of come back. And if we need to come back and get the quarter report or whatever, I'm definitely willing to do that.
Well, just since I was sitting in the meetings when all this happened, we really don't, I think a lot of that was from that Vision 2060 that was paid for by GP. And we may have had some engineering costs and a little bit with the CDBG, but we didn't put a lot of money into that. Basically, it was just the artist renderings, I think, from the 2060 plan of the awnings. And if the owners wanted to have a little balcony up there, they could pay the extra on that. But we were those pylons went down like 16 feet and such. It's going to be very invasive to all of our infrastructure, redo all that. So it was going to be $15 million back then with all this powder coated steel and aluminum. And some of those that you're remembering was some of the traffic control devices, which are the bump out curbs with trees on them so the people will drive slower. And as pretty as they are, they have their negatives as well. So, I mean, we just don't have the money. And unless somebody wanted to just, and you guys did redo the sidewalks here before we took it over. So the sidewalks on Jefferson were redone.
Yeah, we actually
By DOT.
accelerated a resurfacing project outside of the normal rotation. Typically, we're on a 20-year rotation with service, and we accelerated that as an investment as part of that transfer. So a lot of resources financially were put into this plan, and all that would be basically thrown away. To be honest with you.
Well, we still have the sidewalks.
Wouldn't be far away.
Thrown away in the sense of the vision where the city was trying to get to. That original vision that would all be, taken basically.
While you're here, Mr. Dritters, there's kind of a question that came before us at the last council meeting. And I would prefer Mr. Gorby could address that.
My name is Dave Corby. Can you hear me okay? Even farther? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I'll walk around like that. All right, so what I'm proposing is that we remove the entire median strip on Highway 19. Not 27, but Highway 19, we're talking about on the south, within the city limits, so that we remove it and put a complete turn all the way, so all businesses will have access. And so that the customers will have easy turns into the businesses. Because that will increase obviously that'll increase access for us and more revenue for us. And it also, in my opinion, will bring more businesses, it'll be more attractive to other businesses who want to put a location on highway. Because as it is right now, you'll have to go all the way south and make a turn, a dangerous turn, if you ask me. I don't know how many times I've almost got rear-ended trying to make that turn. And we'll have plenty of room for vehicles that want to turn at the same time. So that was my request to the council if they would do it. And so I guess that's what I want to ask you, if that was a possibility to be done.
I'll be honest, I'd have to go look specifically at the location, but traditionally, we don't want to, open up that full movement simply because you increase the number of conflict points and create safety issues. But I don't want to give a broad no, but I'll definitely go take a look and see what can be done. But that's traditionally why we don't do the dual opposing laps in that manner. Just have more people, more conflict. We try to control them, isolate, and reduce the risk of conflict.
Yeah, we get back with this. Okay, any
But then the comment would be, well, they do it here, or they do it here. So why keep it?
Like I say, I have to go look.
I mean, I'm just,
Yes, sir. I totally agree. Yeah, I'll go take a look as we go back. I'll take a look and even pull up some of the crash history and just try to get a perspective, understanding. I can come back with an update or for a position.
While y'all are talking on that, because I know water drainage would be a problem if you make it all, asphalt. Plus, I know Byron Butler's wife planted a lot of those palm trees, and it does make the area more attractive. But Jamie had a good thought, maybe just make the median shorter with more turn abilities. Good for thought. Because what do you want it to look like? Too. You get rid of all your green. Just saying.
Yeah, what for?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, agenda item 16. Florida League of Cities. LCPA. These are four lines.
Yeah, this is Rebecca O'Hare from the Florida League of Cities, and she's a legislative attorney. And she's very familiar with the water transfer issue, the desire that they don't want that to come out of the water departments to affect other funds. And after good research, and I came up with the conclusion that we need to do as others and have some type of fee that the water and other utilities pay for legal, administrative, financial services. Because that's, if they were a freestanding business, they would certainly have those costs. And she even had another idea that works with that too. But I just wanted to bring some certified people in to assure the council that this is nothing illegal, fishy, or manipulative of numbers. So I'm directing it more at you four. But I agree with Bill on some of the water control issues as well. She's going to educate us all on this. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. Again, it's Rebecca O'Hara, the Florida League of Cities. I primarily work in the legislative capacity on water and utility issues as well as natural resource issues too. I'm coming up on my almost 30th year as an attorney practicing in land use and environmental and local government law. And I see that you've got thank you again for having me too. I see you've got the league's legislative priority statement on this related issue. But I'd like to frame this issue a little bit, just take a minute or two and kind of let you know what's going on at the state legislature so that you can, it gives you some more context when you're making your own decisions. I think if you get a sense of where we've been in the last couple of years and where we may be heading on these issues at the state level. So back in 2020, the legislature passed the Clean Waterways Act. It requires certain remedial actions and improvements to regulations relating to stormwater and wastewater and septic tanks. On the wastewater side, one of the things that this bill did is that it required water utilities, wastewater utilities, to develop contingency plans for power outages, to address things that happen when sanitary sewer overflows happen, when it rains or there's a main failure. This legislation also requires utilities to provide certain financial records to the Department of Environmental Protection, and mainly to ensure that a water utility and a wastewater utility has the finances appropriately allocated to infrastructure upgrades. So to ensure that you don't get sanitary sewer overflows and other problems that happen if the utility and its infrastructure is not adequately maintained. Fast forwarding to 2022, we saw some more legislation that basically said, and it didn't pass, but it's setting the stage for last year. What the legislature proposed in 2022 was to prohibit local governments from getting any state money, whether it's a grant or a loan or anything, getting any state money for infrastructure if that local government had transferred money from its utility to its general fund. The carve out for that from that prohibition, however, was that you could still transfer money for administrative and support services under an approved cost allocation plan. So remember that phrase, cost allocation plan. I'll get back to that in just a second. That bill didn't pass. Last year, 2023, more legislation was filed. Did not pass. I expect it will come back. What it would have done is it would have capped transfers from utility funds to the general fund for non-utility functions, right? So any city or county, for that matter, that was transferring money from its utility to pay for, say, police and fire service, which many local governments do, would have been prohibited under that legislation. I'm sure you can see that would be problematic, probably not just for Perry, but for a whole lot of other places. But the bottom line is that the Florida legislature is putting local government utilities under increased scrutiny over how money is spent and how money is transferred. So why is that, you might ask? Well, the legislature generally has a belief that local governments are not taking care of business sufficiently to address their water quality issues that are arising due to deteriorating utility infrastructure. Instead, the legislature believes that local governments are siphoning money away from their water and wastewater and electric utilities for general revenue purposes instead of raising property taxes to fund general revenue services. The legislature also has a concern about utilities that provide extraterritorial services, funding general revenue programs on the backs of people who may not live in the city and can vote for how the city conducts its business. So I had mentioned a few terms earlier: fund transfers, cost allocation. Historically, municipal utilities, under their home rule powers, have transferred enterprise fund revenues to the general fund, much like the private sector, where corporations distribute dividends to their shareholders after expenses are paid, of course. In the public sector, utility revenues, after expenses are paid, are often reinvested in the community in forms of services and infrastructure by transferring enterprise fund revenues to the general fund. The rate of transfer varies from city to city based on the operating expenses, debt service costs, and the desired level of reinvestment in utility assets. So that's why you'll seldom see a fixed percentage or a number that everybody uses in terms of what's the appropriate amount to transfer. It doesn't really apply universally because it really depends on local circumstances. In small and rural communities, transfers from enterprise funds are often used to make up for a lack of tax base. Enterprise funds help ensure the adequacy of life and safety services such as police and fire. Again, as I mentioned, the methodologies of these transfers vary, and terminology that's used varies from city to city. And I'm going to describe some general concepts with the understanding that it may be called something different slightly depending on where you are. But some utilities generally will use a transfer to the general fund as the equivalent of a reasonable profit or return on investment. Others may transfer a fixed percentage of revenues of the utility. So whatever it's called, the important thing here is this type of transfer is not due to any cost or expense associated with operating the enterprise or operating the utility. This type of transfer may be critical for economically disadvantaged communities where even 10 mils of property tax would not begin to cover police and fire services. I know that's the case for hundreds of cities around this state where property tax values are low, so low that your property tax revenues just aren't going to bring in enough money to even fund your police and fire services. Some municipalities, moving on to a different type of transfer, some municipalities use a payment in lieu of taxes or payment in lieu of franchise fees theory as the basis for a transfer or an additional type of transfer. The acronym used for this is called PILOT, stands for payment in lieu of taxes. A pilot is approximate to the amount that a city government would receive if the utility were privately owned and operated and subject to property taxes or franchise fees. So if you think about it, if your water or wastewater utility in the city of Perry were privately owned, your city would be deriving property tax revenue from that private enterprise. Your utility is a public utility. Therefore, it is exempt from property tax. So you're not receiving any property tax revenue. So what some cities do is they will charge a fee to their own utility to offset what they would have received in property taxes if the utility had been privately owned. Another type of transfer that some cities use is transferring an amount relating to payment of services or cost allocation, or indirect cost allocation, as some may call it. These are for services that are used by the utility, such as the percent of city manager time that's devoted to utility services, the percent of human resources time spent on utility matters and utility personnel, the percent of information technology services that are used by the utility. Even rental fees could be assessed to the utility. So if the utility uses any space in your town hall or in other city buildings, there could be a rental fee charged to the utility and recovered by the city for that purpose. So circling back to the recent legislation that I described, especially the legislation that proposed to limit or cap those transfers, this is really important to a city like yours, because I believe that Perry would be immediately and devastatingly affected if transfers were capped. But interestingly enough, even these proposals, which would have drastically limited fund transfers, all of these proposals did allow transfers for the purposes of cost allocation. And they did allow transfers, although not explicitly, for payment in lieu of taxes. These issues were really not in dispute about allowing a utility to recoup or allowing a city to recoup the expenses associated with running a utility. What was in dispute in the legislature last year was about transferring the extra, basically what most cities would need to fund their police and fire. That part was in dispute, but the idea or the concept of payment in lieu of taxes, cost allocation, and indirect cost allocation, those things were really not in dispute. And before I close, I know these legislative issues aren't directly before you today, but I wanted to give you some background. And since I'm on the subject of legislative issues, I would be remiss in not recognizing your own legislators, Representative Schoaf, and your newly elected Senator, Senator Simon. Senator Simon in particular was really, really helpful on this issue. He was looking out for his small cities and his small local governments in his district because he was concerned about the effect that that cap on transfers would have for police and fire services in these communities. So I just wanted to give them a shout out before I close. And I'd be happy to answer any questions for you today. Thanks for having me.
What are those House and Senate bills?
So the House bill number from last year was House Bill 1331. And I don't recall the Senate bill number off the top of my head, so please forgive me for that.
Now, there is no law that I know of that says you have to have a police department or a fire department. So simply, you just do away with it. Now, what you're telling me now, is I got a fund, water fund. And at the end of the certain time, I've got this cash and I put it in this bucket. And today I reach in and I get me a handful out and I put it over and I call it an inter-fund transfer. But no, that's not what I want to do. I want to get it, put it back in that bucket and reach in that same bucket, get that same amount of money and put it over here and call it cost allocation. If that's not fraud or misrepresentation, I don't know what is. Who is doing this, by the way? Could you
Yes, of course.
so who?
Who? So a couple of places that I can tell you where I know from conversations about these bills during last legislative session are places like the city of Daytona,
Daytona?
yep, city of Tampa,
Well, my gosh,
DeLand,
I don't understand that with all the money that they got. We're talking about the city of Perry. City of Perry could go to Millcap and not cover what we're transferring.
that's what we're talking.
Impossible. I can probably say Live Oak, Madison, same thing.
And Chattahoochee, which by the way has its own electric utility, which is critical for that.
They got electric utilities, sure. They got more money hidden than they know what to do with.
A lot of
But
people are in your.
tell me why that's not misrepresentation or why that's not fraud. Financial misconduct. Tell me why it's not,
Well,
other than
what I
it's,
can tell you is that these utilities and your own cities and all cities are audited annually. And when auditors come in and they look at how the financial accounting is done, they will assess these measures. And they'll determine pretty quickly whether there's any fraud going on when they do
Right.
these audits.
Brad, is that fraud? Is that misrepresentation?
Well, I mean, you'd have to define what fraud was and misrepresentation, because if she's giving you laws and statutes to say it's allowable. I mean, like, what is the basis of fraud? If there's laws.
It's misrepresentation. When I got this bucket of money and I reach in that bucket and I take out a handful and put it over here and say, that's an inter-fund transfer. I said, wait a minute, I don't want to do that. I want to get it back. So I get that same handful of money, put it in that same bucket. And now I'm gonna reach in there and get that same money and put it over here, and I'm gonna call it cost allocation. If that's not misrepresentation, I don't know what is. What is the AICPA gonna say about this? What is their opinion?
What do the legal statutes say?
Pardon?
What do the legal statutes say? What would you?
I asked you a question.
So
Well, sir, I mean, my opinion means nothing if it goes against the statute, so I think that would be.
I asked you a question, what I asked CPA were gonna say.
Say, well, what did the statute say? You should go by the
I
statute.
don't think so.
well, thank you.
It's state,
And is it
and
from,
it-
sir?
I would say it'll have to be tested in the courts before you can get away with this.
And the bottom line is, you know, you have home rule powers, and if you don't like any of this, you don't have to do any of it.
Why
There is
I
nothing
hope
compelling
don't do
you
anything.
to do any type
That-
of
That
mechanism.
dog in Perry, Florida is sound asleep under that fire truck. And we don't need to wake him
If
up.
you're
Yeah.
going to penalize us,
Not them.
What the let me insert something here. Because I do understand, I fully understand where Bill's coming from. The, in 2017, it was sent out to everybody concerned, the rural water agreement that Bob Brown signed with the USDA loan, stating that we were going to not do transfers from water anymore. And so that put us ahead of the state having to do it, that obligated us. And that's where rural water in the last year or two has really pinned our arm behind our back and said, thou shalt start to comply. Because we have a signed agreement. Now, agreed, we don't have to ever get any USDA or SRF money again if we don't want to comply with it. And due to the signed contract, it's on the top of page 17. And we can get our own bond
But
funding.
we're getting by with it because you haven't seen it in the other.
We've been doing that, but they're going to start cracking. They point blank said, you signed it, you need to crack down on it. And she's going to be here next week with her presentation saying comply or not, but that's where
Well, we should have been complying all along.
we should have, and I was not brought to my attention till about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were sitting in some of the meetings where I fought with them, and then you fought with them too. And the thing is, but I did find a way to make it legal. You don't agree with it, and I understand that.
I don't see any reason to do anything right now anyway.
Well,
It's not.
it's budget season, we have a signed contract, so whatever
Yeah.
the council's wishes is the budget I'll pursue, but
Is
I
there,
just,
is there any harm continuing to call it a transfer until the legislation passes? Are they gonna go back and look on you? Sure. We just call it transfer till that passes.
well, no, because we signed the contract which supersedes that, and if they want to make us an example, they can do so.
If the sponsor transfers any of the utility proceeds to other funds, the rates must be set higher than the threshold rate to facilitate the transfer.
That's correct.
That's
So
fine.
she's gonna come in and tell you that you're gonna have to jack up rates 15% every year. You all heard the presentation before. And we settled them down with a 5%. Now, we can either,
But what do we do with it, Penny? What do we do with that 5%? We spend it. We spend it, every bit of it, 5.
that's because we've
What
got
have we
aging
done? What have we
infrastructure.
accomplished? Nothing.
Nothing. I get it. It's six. That's like I said at the last meeting, when you and I kind of tied up on it, but I can say I'm with you. It's 6 one, half dozen of the other. And I know you'd like to take it to the governor, but he's the one that's pushing a lot of these water incentives as well. So when I heard that, I kind of like, ooh, I know what's the background side of it. So we're gonna do whatever y'all want. I'm just bringing you the facts that the auditors, because it wouldn't necessarily be a transfer, it'd be a 300 object code, a service fee, just like her services are 300. So it'd be a 300 object code, not a 900 transfer. And I know you and I are the only one, well, and Brad, that knows what I'm talking about. But you're right, it's a 300 code or 900 code. Just saying.
Moving the same money, doing exactly what you've agreed not to do.
If y'all are done with me, I'm gonna sit down and
I
let
have a
the
question for you.
CPA continue on.
I have a question for you real quick.
Yes.
Just,
Yes.
to understand plainly, especially when you're talking about enterprise fees or different fees that could be justified based on rental space, is it, even if it's coming out of this additional money, are you also saying that these are things that are fair financial fees? Like, I mean, you've already said it, like if it was private, so it's sort of the idea that we're modernizing and actually holding an account that we are spending money, space, and time providing these utilities. It's not just the idea that it comes out of thin air, it's just that we haven't charged before. Would that be a fair statement?
I think the best way to look at it is think about how you would treat a utility if it were not owned by your city. But it were using some of your city professional staff. So if, say, the private utility were to say, we'd really like your city to do payroll for us, right? Well, you wouldn't really want to do that for free, I would guess. So there would be because there's a cost associated with doing that, right? Risk management, another,
Setting up the bills.
there's there's liability, there are solid waste services. So, if the private entity said, hey, city, can you take care of these things for me? I think that as a good fiscal steward, using public money, you would probably want to charge back for the services that private entity was using. And so that's the concept, is that it's, treating, because an enterprise is an enterprise, but they call it an enterprise because it's sort of something that, can be done, publicly.
So because under this, we may be assessing enterprise fees where we have not, doesn't make it fraud. It means that you're being able to justify that this, like you said, it was a private utility company, the city would be benefiting from that as well.
Franchise fees and property taxes, tangible taxes. So this is in lieu of property taxes, is one way. I really like that concept, but that's just me personally.
If it was private and not, the salaries of these employees would at least triple.
As I'm sure your rates would too. Something to think about. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just, I think she covered a lot of it. One thing to touch on, what you're saying about the bucket, bill, and it being fraud or a misrepresentation of fact, but you're right, fraud would be a misrepresentation of facts and intent to see, absolutely. The only difference I see in what you're saying there and what you would be doing here is that the bucket at the end of the day would be filled and be taken from the bucket, as opposed to initially out front saying, this is the rate we're going to begin to charge for the services that are being provided. So instead of it being, it's the same money, you're right. But you've already allocated that money elsewhere, so it would be a service charge as opposed to a fraud. That would be where I see it being different.
But we're not in this, just a resolution that you approved. You're not doing that. You're taking 100% of the exact same transfer
I pulled back that resolution.
and calling it.
I pulled back that resolution in the last meeting because that would have just been to fix this year. But what we're doing we're talking about planning for the budget coming up. Just forget about that this year. We can go along with our transfers, never mind. But the thing is,
Yeah.
instead of having the bucket of money,
Yeah.
we're talking about the budget. And the thing is, do you want me to plan the property in lieu and tax fee or a ratio of management fees? Or we're going to continue doing transfers? Because when the Rev Plan people come here next meeting, they're going to say you adopt our Rev Plan or you don't. And if you're going to transfer, you're saying we're not. And then you're in violation of that contract.
Already.
And we are, but what they're doing is they're saying, we've given you multiple warnings. Get on board. So I brought these people here today to let the rest of the council know that these fees or in lieu of taxes is not illegal, because I thought it was Benita, but like Shirley, Benita, one of you said, you know, Hope, can you do this? It's like, no, you need a specialty lawyer. And Bill and I were saying like, no, Hope, this is not Hope's area. That was Miss O'Hare's area. So I brought you someone that, and I also brought you an active certified accountant, our CPA, to tell you that you can have these under 300 codes fees and they would not be transfers.
We can do anything.
That would. That's the ones that, another thing that was kicked around a little bit was, the municipal public service tax. Where you could, put a tax on receipts of, gas and water, up to 10%. Obviously, that would jack prices on consumer, from what I understand. But if you lowered your
The
rates-
utility tax is already maxed out.
Already maxed out?
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
This is an issue that I've expected the Public Service Commission to jump right in and a long time ago.
so you'll have the rep plan presented next meeting and they'll want you to adopt it or not. And you can discuss it down into September, but you know, whenever we pass the budget, it's gonna be whatever and I'll divvy it up however you wish. We can go get bonds of our own. Bill's done it before. We've gone through bond processes. We can get loans from banks. I saw an email today, some kind of state loan fund that's not USDA or SRF, but the rate's only 4%. But you know, it's all up to you what you want to do. USDA is usually like 1%, and they have grant forgiveness. That's why we kind of want to be their friend. Anyway. Because of the. Thank you so much for trying. Thank you, Brad.
Then I was 6. Public hearing for USDA.
Sean's gonna be here to talk about it, but we're applying for one of these USDA grants through the help of Florida Rural Water. If you get the grant, it's, they pay 55%, then we'll have to pay the other 45%.
And we have the offer money to do it, so that would be sweet. I believe top of my head, $450,000-ish for the truck. I mean, I just remember, I never really got involved with it much, just overheard.
But this ignorant council member, what does this truck do?
Backs and jets.
It's really cool. It has a lot of power and pressure, and it whooshes a lot of pressure on these sewer lines to clean them out. It's almost like the arteries in our heart when we get old from bad diet. They have to get rotor-rooted out sometimes. Well, that's what this truck does. And it's a real handy tool, especially with all these old. And this one's, we have a smaller one, but it doesn't have the force to handle some of these bigger lines. So this thing's a real good rotor-rooter.
We have a trailer jetter at the moment. That's what we talk of. It's not a very large rig at all. Honestly, it's just not capable of handling the job that he needs to handle. With the intrusion into the wastewater lines that he's had, with talking about the rains and dirt getting into the lines, this jetter would be able to get some of that debris out of there much more efficiently than the trailer we have now.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this?
Have we ever had one decide?
I don't know.
And how much danger would it be without much force to the line?
I don't think there's a problem with.
Thinking about it.
They're not gonna destroy the lines. If they're in that bad a shape, that would be deteriorated beyond the point. Thing basically is a cleaning tool. and a somewhat of a soft digging mechanism to be able to clean out these lift stations, clean out these manholes. And your stormwater system, which is in definite need of, we very needed.
I'm thinking about the one on North Cherry Street.
You're sending a forced line, if you will, think water hose through the line, it's open ended, so you're not gonna be running into the pipe, it's gonna be following the pipe, it's not gonna be hitting the pipe and making
Go
it.
backwards.
Well, to an extent, yes, it's blowing itself through with the water pressure.
But if the line is weak already, is leaking already,
It's not gonna be running into the wall, you're gonna be following a channel in that pipe.
I think you're worth for that.
This was in, the 22-23 budget, and it was rejected. Then it ends up in the capital improvement in 25-26. What makes it such a burning issue today?
Sean said it was a higher need over some other things, and we're gonna try to do this USDA grant to save almost half of it off.
So the USDA grants, we can use them as many as we want at one time to apply for them.
Yeah.
They're a little bit slow moving, and we did have the ARPA funds available to do the match. So, and we've had that superintendent of sewer that's very sick, so someone's just taking the reins, and that's,
It may take 2 or 3 years to get approved.
yeah.
Probably could get rid of one piece of equipment.
And also, it's good to have a backup, because a smaller jetter, if it breaks, then they've got backup, so.
And we could probably rent.
Well, we've had to rent a truck a
Before,
couple
Yeah.
of occasions where the
Yeah.
equipment we had was just completely not capable, no matter what we tried.
No, I'm talking about rent somebody else.
Well, that's what I'm referencing. We've had to rent this type of
Yeah.
equipment
Yeah.
before, so we could do the same thing and help out our neighboring towns who've helped us out by doing so.
What do we do?
Just maybe a public hearing.
second reading next meeting, or no?
I think it needs one public hearing.
Oh, okay.
We'll keep moving along with,
Is it already in the process?
this is part of the process.
Yeah.
This is one of the steps.
Agenda item 16. Public hearing and final reading ordinance number 1029. Amended pay cycle for council members. Changing it to bi-weekly. Instead of monthly. Final hearing.
Read something. Y'all have to read it or something?
Read the title.
An ordinance of the city of Perry, Florida, amended pay cycles for city council members from monthly to bi-weekly, repealing all ordinances to conflict herewith and providing an effective date. I'm reading.
Motion to approve.
Councilmember Brian,
Yes.
Councilmember Landry,
Yes.
Councilmember Woodball,
Yes.
Mayor Hampton.
Yes. Agenda item 16, public hearing and final reading ordinance number 1030. This is to allow food trucks on Highway 19. An ordinance of the city of Perry, Florida, allowing food vendors to conduct businesses on Highway 19. Repealing all ordinances and conflict herewith and providing an effective date. Anyone from the public? Final reading.
Just, I have one question.
Sure.
It's law upon passage. It's not a future implementation date, it's law upon passage.
Effective upon final reading.
Okay.
Motion.
Roll call. Councilmember Brian.
Yes.
Councilmember Landry,
Yes.
Councilmember Woodball,
Yes.
Mayor Hampton.
Yes. Agenda item 6A. Introduction and first reading.
It's effective now.
Yes.
Those three people wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
I, yes. Well, they still weren't sure. This is a very confusing process.
Introduction and first reading ordinance number 1031. An ordinance of the city of Riverport amending financial matters of the city to require council's approval for bids over $25,000. Repealing all ordinance in conflict herewith and providing an effective date. First reading.
Mayor, let me,
Go ahead.
we
Go ahead.
made a mistake. Need to fix it.
Go ahead.
We're dealing here with one little section of this. We need to be dealing with this. And I'm going back to the charter. In 1981, the charter was approved by a vote of citizens, period. What got the city council to approve a charter and let it go forward. This was the situation of the city. They had, at that time, each council member had their own department, own private city phone, and had one police car that was running. City, of course, was broke. City had to borrow $40,000 to meet a payroll on Friday. Florida Gas was about to shut the gas off. So they had to use that $40,000, pay the gas bill, collected enough money over the weekend to meet the payroll. So after all this is going on and public outcries, the city council they appointed a committee to write the charter. Public voted that charter. Now, there are those who think that charter can be changed by a resolution or ordinance, and it cannot be. It's a law. And why someone would want to go against the public will, I don't know, but that's just the way. And the last meeting, we pulled up ordinance number 891. But if we had gone back to where the first time, ordinance number 631, this is what it says. Each ordinance, resolution, and code of technical regulation in effect within the city period is by this ordinance readopted and reenacted. In other words, it's basically a housekeeping. Go back to ordinance number 821, they did it again. It's just reaffirming all ordinances, all resolutions, everything. And they just do it every so often. So what we need to do is to go into the purchasing, which is done by an ordinance, purchasing manual. And we just need to come up with just to call it a policy right now until we get it there, of what we're talking about doing. Now, we've talked about it, but I don't know that we've ever said this is what we want to do. We just kind of been thumbing it along. But what I want to do is, and I've had a lot of public, all bids open here. Review. Come back to us. And then we approve.
And that'll go out.
All bids.
Well, whatever you can make it.
No, we're making it 25.
No, don't spend that.
Yeah, we are.
That's what you
I
said
know
at the
what
last
you
meeting.
think you're doing, Diane, but that's not.
Well, that's what this paper says.
Well, why do you want to do something when you still haven't done anything? You make it the 25,000, 30, whatever, but do it right.
Okay. well,
And that's not,
We're just.
no.
Is the 25 okay with you?
Sure,
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
All right.
We just need to come back with the correct ordinance. You following me?
What's wrong with the ordinance that he's drafting?
The ordinance, I think the ordinance should say for financial matters, we follow
Because
our manual.
it still doesn't do what you want to do.
So this doesn't do what I want to do for sure, because it doesn't say that, it doesn't specify that they bring it before the council.
Exactly.
That wording is not there.
Right, and it needs to, we're in a learning process. This is just one of the things that we stumbled a little on. We just need to bring back that ordinance. Put 25,000 in it and put the open here.
Which ordinance you don't have bring it back?
Talking about
The
taking,
1031.
I'm talking about taking 25,000. Throw this away,
And do.
new ordinance. Put the 25 in. Put the opening of bids here.
Put the clause in that clause.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right, that's,
I thought that's what we've done. It's
No.
not, that's not in there.
no,
I got you.
We just need to make it.
I finally got today what the county does.
Oh.
I like some of it. I think me and Penny and Bill need to sit down for about 4 hours and rewrite our whole purchasing manual. And then you make an ordinance that you follow your purchasing manual.
I think that sounds like a good idea, Bill. And we also need to look at the
Let
charter
me
while we're
say
doing
this,
it.
just because the county doesn't, or anybody else doesn't mean we gotta do it.
I agree.
Because we're chartered.
We
to-
make-
And the county's
make
not
our-
chartered.
Like we want.
And the charter also doesn't have pre-designed, like, you talk to Public Works, you talk to purchasing, and you talk to,
No.
we don't do that.
You don't get there.
The county does a competitive bid for anything over 35,000. But the actual bid package has to come to y'all first. That's got to be approved. And it goes out for bid. Then they open the bid in another meeting. And then come back again with the committee's recommendation. It takes 3 meetings for them to do one, at least 3.
At least 3. And Elizabeth mentioned to me when you visited her today,
Yeah,
that you didn't want any more than 2 bid openings at any meeting. And my goodness, that might retard purchasing terribly.
do that.
If you only, what you suggested to her, that we only do 2 bid openings per council meeting.
No.
That's
No,
what
no,
Pete said, you said, and I thought, we have to talk about this then.
No.
Okay,
2 issues. Is that what you were saying?
2 bids. Whatever she was trying to grasp when he was visiting her. And just,
They got 4 coming, right?
the next meeting, there's 4 coming, but the bids just come up as we need them. And there might be meetings, but there won't be anything up. Now,
Right.
we've got a new city manager and a lot of things are shaking that hadn't happened for many years. So that's kind of why there's been a glut happening now. And we have supervisors in places that are getting her done. And city managers are getting it done.
Mhm.
So after a while, this will level out.
Right.
That, you won't have, because at the beginning of the fiscal year, once we approve that budget, you might have a truckload of them. It's just, but this is your job. This is what you got to do. I mean. So I don't want to limit. I was going to say, if you want to limit that, we need to talk about it now. Okay, then never mind.
To get this part moving, let's just amend bid shall be opened at council meeting. And right here, bid shall be opened at council meeting.
Yeah, because you got bids shall be opened at the time and place stated in the request.
Which is now the council meeting. Because you told us that.
We could get this moving today if we amend that part, if that's what you want to do, and we'll get the 25,000 part going. For y'all to approve them. Until, it's gonna take some time to get the whole purchase manual looked
Oh,
at.
yeah, there's some stuff in
I'm
there.
okay with that. I did want the language in there that, that would be open here.
And I think that was already established, but
It was
it's
established, but it's
fine
not.
to put it in there.
You don't write it, it doesn't get done.
I think we voted on it at the time, but we could put it in this. as well.
Also, if we want to pass this with the change.
As
what
amended,
Don's just recommended.
just as amended.
So it's getting done tonight.
Well, that was just the first reading.
Oh, right. Okay.
Did you have any other changes, Bill, on that?
No, I. We will get there.
It's amended and we can move on.
That's just first reading. So
Okay. Agenda item 16. Approval of minutes.
motion would come.
I have.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say on the Mr. Amen's thing, I'm gonna add the specific location of the code enforcement issue.
When it comes to the workshop. I was on the speaker, I said I was at. Saying the council members should. That would be to introduce city manager. City attorney. And listen to concerns, ideas and everything.
Oh, if I gotta go, everybody's gotta go.
Whatever you wanna do.
We're all coming.
Whatever you wanna do. If you need your backup spot, yes. But since we're on this, can you all tell me what date? Be available? The first. At 8,
I'm having
that's on
surgery.
Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm having surgery on 31st.
I mean, if you're right,
Let's do the Monday after the 8, whatever that is, 8+7.
okay, I had. This, on the
Did you have a
7th,
7?
on the 7th, you all had a meeting. Go for that.
I should be good.
Do the
What about-
14th.
What about the Wednesday? At 8, or at 8,
That's
The ninth.
that's a regular city council.
the 9th, say Wednesday,
The 9th.
yeah. But you will be available on the 9th.
Yeah, the surgery.
He's getting surgery.
Y'all do that day. That'd be good for me.
You don't have to say it much, you can let it, and yeah,
I wouldn't be there.
you can't.
Not on the nine.
Do the 14th, or the week after that, Monday.
You may not be able to get everyone. You may
14th.
not be able to get everyone, so
I'm good.
whatever.
never have a date to get everybody.
Are they still?
Unless I call in sick.
Are they
You-
still putting
You
it
can
on
have
for
a backup
July?
person there.
Are they still
Yeah,
putting
but
it
she doesn't. So she's good.
Chief.
I'll be there. Good.
The
14th.
14th.
That's Monday, the 14th. At what time?
Monday.
6 is what Shirley's want.
Are we talking about August?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next month.
That's Thursday. What are you referring to?
Huh? The 14th.
Monday, the 14th.
Monday.
I'll give
down
it to
here.
her later. Never mind.
Oh,
Oh, I have never
Let me
seen
know
a
when-
calendar shift.
Maybe work.
That is so weird.
They do weird things.
You don't have to be
Computer.
It started with Tuesday.
What is it?
Well, I've been told that we,
Long as you announce it.
everybody.
Workshop.
Yeah.
I'll be on duty, but I'll be.
Well, I was
Somebody
like,
call
yeah.
911.
Well, what you want?
No, it's going on, okay.
No, you gotta have 2 weeks' notice that y'all are
Yeah, as long as you
gonna.
advertise it.
Just notice it.
So do you want us to advertise that for the 14th?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
You all.
Okay, so we're at
I'm not used to talking to that crowd.
August the 14th at what time?
6 to
Six.
6.
6:15.
6 to 8. Might be 6 to 7. I'll be providing the prayer.
That's a town hall.
And of the town hall workshop.
Yep.
A bunch of different stuff. The list. Never mind. Okay. Moving ahead, agenda item 6H. Council to discuss sales of Rosegate Pavilion. The west side. And take any action needs necessary.
We don't have a written policy on what's allowed to be sold or when things are allowed to be sold at the pavilion. We currently allow things to be sold. I've had several people come up to me with concerns. I just want us to write a policy down for what we're gonna allow to happen there.
What was the concern?
The last one, they was selling cell phones. If, what I've heard, the intentions were to be like a farmer's market for selling your own produce and stuff like that. It's turned into yard sales some days, people pulling up there, cooking on their own grill, not regulated. None of them have business licenses.
Are they selling it from the park?
Yes.
Health department needs to monitor that. We don't have a monitor for it. We're not getting into that. Back in the day, it was hopefully Main Street had a source of income for selling space there, but Main Street, they didn't want to work Saturday mornings to control it because, you know, and Bob built it for since at least it's less unsightly there. So I guess we've had people come in with their fruit wagons and like it says, people tailgate cooking food and selling it. If people want to buy it.
The parks ordinance doesn't allow for sale of anything from the park that's not part of an event. Like the festival or things like that. So they're actually doing it without permission and against our city ordinances now. We've addressed some of the issues through the cell phone sales. They're not getting business licenses, they're not paying the transit merchant fees, and we're shutting them down. We just need to know what the council wants to allow to happen in city parks. So that we can start the enforcement of this, and there have been many complaints. There's things being sold to parks that we're investigating that as well too, and we're addressing those separately. Through different avenues. But the complaints we're getting is they're selling too many things from the parks that are not in the spirit of what that was designed to be. Causing traffic issues in Rosehead, it's causing some other issues.
And so with this ordinance, say something that, you know, Rosehead would be an exception for yard sale items only.
And whatever the council wishes.
But
is what it
that's
would be.
kind of what they're saying if you want it, but it wouldn't be someone tailgating food. So that prohibition would need to be put in there, as well as any established business like phone franchises and such.
You know, it's not fair to allow cell phone sales of someone with a pop-up tent and a table. When you've got businesses like Mr. Gorby's that are just trying to be a good business here with a storefront, it's stealing from him is what it's doing.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't allow those kind of sales.
I thought we put a halt to that when they were just setting up tents. We did that, but they're supposed to have that transient fee, and I agree.
We're still chasing them.
The police are the only ones that can run them out, because we don't have any other enforcement.
Well, next time they over on that side, I call.
Please do.
Yes.
Just call us direct. We'll send them.
But you know, these people,
Sitting up over there.
but these people are just trying to, you know, clean up their closets and make a little money.
But what
That's
we're,
what it's for.
what we're asking for is guidance from the council on what we would allow in the parks for day-to-day sales. It was designed for like
what John talked about was the farmer's market and cottage industry sales. You know, stuff prepared at home that you bring in and you sell is packaged. It's what really it was designed for. If you get too far outside of that, and you've got the Department of Agriculture requirements you have to comply with for sales. And it's not really a yard sale, it's turned into a junk flea market sale most of the time. And that is definitely an issue. And it could be at any park. It's not just Rose Head, but it could be happening at any park in the city. And that's the parks the council controls through policy and ordinance. We're just asking for guidance on what you think we should allow. And we can start moving forward with a policy or ordinance if needed to establish that.
Well, I'm not like Penny, just gonna keep up with it.
We're already trying our best now. We just keep with it. We just need to know what.
But you're gonna look at my table of junk versus her table of junk and can't do that. That's what I'm wondering. We have a problem there.
We just run everybody.
Who says that your junk is better than my junk?
We just run everybody off there.
That's what, our job to follow the policy.
Yeah.
And right now, we could run everybody off, should be running everybody
Yeah.
off.
Then what's?
They don't have a
That's why I need a policy. What do we want to allow that in there?
Because if I'm not mistaken, even in the ordinance, Bill may know, even to have a yard sale, you're only allowed 2 a year. And then you have to get a license.
That's how it was when Main Street was on looking at.
But and these trailers have come in and they just, some of these parking lots, some of these shopping centers, they were just emptying out and then they moved to another one. It was the same
And they-
trailer every week. So then I called them and they said, yeah, we know.
And sometimes they leave what they don't want.
In
And
the
we're
parking
cleaning
lot.
it up.
You know, so
That's
Family
not-
Dollar don't need that.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So I agree with the chief that not only is it stealing from me, the cell phones, everybody who sells food is stealing from all the other businesses.
Right.
I suggest you eliminate all of it, period. None of it, because all it does is steal from every other legitimate business in the city.
I agree.
Okay, so if we say no sales in the park, no sales period. It was established as a farmer's market. What is it going to become?
So there is an exception for produce that you grow on your own through agriculture. So if you sell your own produce, there's no requirements or guidelines for that. I would say that would be the exception. If you were selling your own produce that you grow, there would be an exception. That you grow. And that's what part of agriculture guidelines are.
So in those sales other
They
than
have to have a license.
homegrown produce.
Yes, ma'am.
What about homemade items as well?
Well,
You know,
usually
a lot of
cottage
them
industry
have-
covers that too. Yes. But there are Department of Agriculture guidelines that deals with products like this for sale. And we can bring those, and did I send you those, John?
I've had them before. So who's gonna monitor that?
I think they should have to register with the city and then we
That might
give
be an
them a little, I mean, they don't have to pay anything, but give them something.
Some kind
Put a
of,
sign down there saying you have to register with the city and if you don't have
yeah, I agree,
this paperwork, then
I agree.
How's the city gonna know that they're growing it?
they need
Oh,
to,
that
I mean,
sounds like
that's
an
just up to
issue.
them, but they should have to come get some type of a certificate. And that's up to them if they sign saying they. And then, well, at least part
That
they go down there, they don't have that little card certificate.
I mean-
That might be a way to monitor that, yeah. How do we prove anything? Can't we investigate?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. If you want the flea market tables,
Kenny, you should have been in there Saturday and seen it. I mean, it's terrible.
I'm sure what it's
Where you have
grown
the
into.
fence back into, because people can't get out of there, back into the fence and not.
And this thing says there's not supposed to be any vehicles in there, and yet you've got parking places for vehicles, so. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, you know, you can clean that up with if there's established marked parking, then it's allowed to have vehicles there. But we're talking about vehicles outside of areas where vehicles are not allowed. And there's some parks that have no vehicles beyond this point signs that are, they're actually regulatory signs for the state of Florida that we can enforce it that way. Or you could clean up and just add a line into your ordinances for parks that says vehicles are allowed in designated marked parking spaces only. And you can handle it that way. Or parking areas.
That doesn't say vehicles aren't allowed, so you're not allowed to sell out of your vehicle.
Yes, out of it.
Speaking for myself, I need a little bit more time.
Right.
On this. I don't know what I was.
So for the time being, we're gonna follow the ordinance. The way the guidelines are.
See if that helps.
Yes,
There's no
ma'am.
written policy.
So do we need to put a sign up saying no vendors, period?
We just go warn them. We'll warn them to begin with, and if they don't comply, then we'll handle it differently.
No flea markets, no, no,
We
no.
have a magistrate for a reason. She can hear these cases. I just don't want our business community being taken advantage of by allowing. That's what I'm concerned.
So then the flea market tables are gonna set up in parking lots again, like go across the street. at
We'll
Fairpoint.
get them to,
They're only allowed to do it
Bruce
twice
is
a
gonna
year,
be
or they have
busy.
to get a license.
we'll get them to. We'll have enough with it.
Well, my intention is want to stop all sales there.
I'm about to say, like,
Let's think on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess because sometimes the activity downtown, even though you wanted positive activities, is very attractive, because it's like not dead, but you don't want what y'all were speaking of.
If we could control it better, but yes, it is a festival type thing, everybody's there in one place, so it's kind of, again, the pavilion kind of hides some of it. But you need to control the parking, and in my opinion, because it is bringing people downtown.
Gonna bring us back, right? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 6I. Yeah, the floor is there.
Well, I'm sorry,
Before you get, sorry,
no problem.
never voted on the minutes, got sidetracked on the town hall meeting.
We didn't vote.
I don't believe there was a motion or second on the minutes, so that's been approved.
Was there, Brandy?
There was amendments to the minutes, I think, for.
Yeah.
Get sidetracked.
That's where we got
Never
that.
voted.
Landry did do a motion, but nobody ever seconded. it.
Second.
No? Okay.
Oh,
Councilmember Brians,
Yes.
Councilmember Landry,
yes.
Councilmember Woodball.
Yes.
Mayor Hampton.
Yes. That was my fault.
That's okay.
Got it. Sidetracked. Okay, Stems.
No problem. Actually, our chief did a great job in his legal exposition of the alcohol ordinance. Basically, as it's noted, and I think where it gets a little confusing because it'll say other than 1A, 2A, P, is that like basically the package stores and bars, as well as all other types of sales, like from grocery stores and convenience stores, no sale can take place between 1 AM and 7 AM. But on Sundays, we do allow for there to be beer and wine to go from different places like a grocery store, a convenience store. But that 1 AM to 7 AM is sacrosanct. And the package stores, they can't even remain open after 1:30. So I guess that's to discourage anyone from hanging out and just buying gum. I mean, if it's open, most likely you are selling, or you're tempted to try to sell the alcohol. And the restaurants can sell on site every day of the week, including liquor. But again, not between 1 and 7 AM on Sundays. So I guess there was a request for clarity. And I was thinking that the only clarity that may assist is to actually define or give an example of what a 1 AP and a 2 AP store, that, a package store and a bar versus a convenience store and a grocery store. But I don't even know if that's necessary. So I agree with what you stated, and it looks like the statute, the annotation of the statute supports that. So if you think, who are the people who are needing the most clarity? The convenience stores?
Dave, what was your request, original question? Original question.
Did that 1 AM apply to convenience stores, grocery stores? Because it wasn't really clear to me, because there was an and, there was a sell, what does it say, sell consume and something else. I can't remember what the last.
Other than, but it says other than a one APS or two APS holder.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the clarity I needed was, and you also mentioned, did you say, am I wrong? When you said that all convenience stores have to close at 1 AM?
Not the convenience stores, no,
Okay.
they can't sell,
The on consumption.
they can't
Some
sell.
places.
Right.
Okay, the bars, okay. Okay, so my question was, did that apply to, was your intent or to apply to convenience stores? Did you specifically in that ordinance want to close down businesses essentially from selling any beer or wine from a convenience store or Walmart or any other to APS dealer? Is that the intent of this ordinance? Is my question,
The intent of the ordinance was not to make the store close, but to shut off sales.
to shut off the.
Shut off sales.
Yes. Is that the intent? If that is the intent that the council has, I would ask that the council reassess that intent. Because that is taken away from revenue from the city. Okay, there are plenty of people who want to grab some 6-packs or whatever they want to grab before they go fishing at 5 AM in the morning, but they can't grab it. They can't do any of that. They're not out. Not everyone is out at 3 AM to go get drunk. That's not the purpose here. My intent is to get you to understand and to change the ordinance if necessary to allow retail establishments to just sell it all night long. That way it'll attract more businesses who will come to Perry. Because, and let me give you an example. One of the things we're doing is going to start a automated mini mart. So this automated mini mart is open 24/7. Okay. And in this mini mart, there are the machines that sell beer and alcohol, for the 2 APS license and tobacco also. Well, obviously, we have measures in place for license, for identification. So in such, if we were to create several of these businesses, we're going to seek out places, jurisdictions that don't limit our sales, just like any other business is going to do. They're going to say, do we really want to come to Perry because they shut the biggest sales down at 1 AM, because obviously your biggest sales are going to be alcohol and tobacco after 1 AM, unless you have a gas station, it's going to be gas fuel too. So that's why I asked you to reassess maybe what your intent is.
I think, that decision on to loosen the restrictions will be an ordinance creation. And I know that in the past, previous councils shied away from anything to do with alcohol restrictions being loosened.
Right.
And, because we've had this room filled with people about alcohol in the past.
It was tough getting this passed to the beginning. I mean, it really-
But I understand exactly what you're saying. Just changing the hours in which and 1 and 2 APS licensee could be open for business
Right.
and actually do the sales.
That's all I'm asking for, not to change the bars.
Yeah.
You can leave the bar. I'm a dog in that fight. I don't care what you do for that. I'm sure they would like it, but I understand that because that comes down to maybe a police issue. Okay. Because they're consuming in the bar at 3 AM. That could be a problem. But when you're, going fishing and you need to grab a 6-pack from the automated mini mart on your way to the beach to go fishing, you should be able to do.
You should go shopping before 1 o'clock.
Go shopping before.
Well, I can't say how other people shop, but
Well, yeah, you can, because if they know it's closed down at 1 o'clock, they'll get there before 1.
So the question really is, does the council have the belly for this?
That is the
it goes
question.
down to that.
Yeah.
You have. Today, the overarching theme I saw here was about money, okay? You need money, you need people, you need people to pay the taxes. You need businesses to attract the people. So it's all one big circle, okay? You want businesses, then you're going to have to do things to help businesses to come here and to stay. You want money, revenue, then you're going to need people. People only come for the businesses and the schools. Okay, can't do anything about that. But they're gonna come here, so it's all one big circle. One creates the other, you get more and more revenue out of it. So if you're not gonna do the little things just to bring a little more revenue, then you're not gonna get the revenue you need.
I think
It-
historically, right, the one AM to seven AM cool off period, originally probably in the eighties with different advocates like MAD and different, that there was supposedly a connection to having 24-hour availability of alcohol sales to public safety issues. Now, I don't know when the last time that was reviewed here in Taylor County, but and then Sunday, no sales on Sundays, sort of the Southern Bible Belt way, but yeah.
So, what I, if the council wishes, I can research and see what other communities are doing with just one and two APS licensees on sale times, just to give you a snapshot of what's happening in this region. If that, and then we can bring this information back.
And not to put any dog in the fight here, but I have family members and other people in Madison County or other areas around that drive through Taylor County to go fishing all the time. And if they're not always thinking about what rules are here versus alcohol. So on their way to go fishing, a lot of them will stop here in Taylor to get gas, to get bait, to get whatever they need. So they're not looking at that regulation about alcohol sales before they get here. They're not thinking about that.
But what's going to stop people from going to the convenience store that are leaving the bar and fueling up on more alcohol and causing an
Their own,
accident?
well, their own morals. That's the only thing is that.
And that's all the money.
And that's it. What we're dealing with here, we're dealing with the values and morals of individuals. But that's, we can't regulate our drug sales either. We try our best, it's.
So you're gonna bring us.
I will look and see what the area, the region, what we do have. For different areas.
And probably statistics too, right, on late night. Trouble people do or don't get into.
Well, it's statistics are different for every area because the college town's gonna be different than this. So, you can't do a true study on that because there's too many variables, really. You'd have to take snapshots of communities just like ours. And just do it.
Something like Live Oak that's allowed alcohol the same time span that y'all did.
But if they have sales at different times, and allow them different times, it's not gonna be accurate. It's gonna be different. If you think about the scientific method, you've got to eliminate a lot of other stuff.
But it seems like regardless if it's different times, that it seems to be a common course for there to be a block time. I don't know what to call it, a sober time or just like no sales time.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious about that, like the idea
Yeah,
of
the cool off.
just
time.
24 hours versus a block time.
I'll work on that.
Will you just bring that?
I'll do that.
John. It's J. I mean, 6J.
Council will continue discussion on policy resolutions and take any action deemed necessary. I picked two of them. I think this is one that came in Bill's time, but it's not how we are currently doing it. City employees who work or otherwise account for via sick leave or vacation hours, 40 hours in 1 week pay period. They do the emergency part, but you don't get paid overtime unless you work over 40 hours, the way we currently do it.
They need to be fixed.
It's gonna cost a bunch of money
What?
if we go back to that.
No, I'm talking about the part about, not having to work, take vacation and
We've done away with that. You have to work 40 hours to get overtime. You can't use vacation time for that.
Yes.
So what are you trying to change?
No, we need to
We
reject
don't,
this
we
one.
probably want to reject this one.
oh,
This
okay,
came- This came from 2003.
let's do it.
Reject.
So, for clarification, this is a policy that is in place.
It's not in place.
We haven't been following it.
while we reject.
It's on that list of the ones that Ray had for us to go all through.
Was in place at some time?
It was.
but it's not in place anymore.
And Bob probably fixed it because people need to work for 40 hours to overtime, bill vacation time, and then it's there.
The confusion is why are there policies on the list that are being reviewed that are not in effect? If they're not in effect, why are they even on the list?
I agree.
Why are we even bringing it up to discuss it?
I agree.
That doesn't make sense.
Because they're in place.
No,
That
I
was
just clarified, they're not in place.
But they're on the books, so to speak.
They weren't brought before the council for rejection in the past, they're still sitting there floating even though we're not following.
Or somewhere along the line, and
So it is on the books, it's just not being followed.
yeah, and I can't tell you when Bob being the businessman, and I agree with him, that nowhere I'd ever been had such a policy. And you know, you come here, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then Bob talked about one day, it's like, we need to get on board with regular 40-hour.
I think it's directed in the employee manual.
I don't understand how a policy can be on the books and not be in effect.
Well, there wasn't even really a book, it was just tribal knowledge, and Bob was leaving and Ray loved what he had. This was mishmash that Ray was going, yeah.
Clean it up.
But if I were to add this policy is never in effect, on the book, which is not being followed.
It's policies were never in books or until Ray started trading wild. There was never anything in a book. That's what was goofy about the whole mess. Because you just can't keep looking up minutes of meetings for 15 years. These policies were frequently verbal. When Bob left, he started.
I mean, I already highlighted that.
And then when he left and Ray asked for him, I said, this is what we got. Tribal living. And that's why we're reading through them.
And Aaron, at one point, Ray had all of these policies before us, asking us to reject our key, and we did not complete that.
Because somewhere along the line, it was voted on by the council to pay people more money. But when that was, I can't do it.
Would it be a better summary to say that these were actions taken in council meetings that were in the minutes that were probably violation of policy? That would be a better way.
This paper says that at the time, Councilman Everett said this is a delicate issue that needs further consideration and justification. After further discussion, it was the consensus of the council that the former policy be reinstated until further consideration. The policy requested City Attorney Bill Blue to research the issue.
And that was in 03, right? When that passed.
There's no date.
Yeah, that was right.
Yeah, three.
But then somewhere along the line, when Bob was here, he went back to normal paying of overtime. And I know Bill, they did that to help retain employees at the time.
Sorry.
Okay.
The other one says city council will provide overtime pay to the 3 supervisory employees in the police department and the 3 supervisory employees in the fire department. What we currently do now.
Now, that doesn't say that I get overtime.
I was just gonna
That's
ask
not
the
it.
salary.
No.
He's not a
No, no,
supervisor.
No, So it's not me, if we're dealing with the transition from adding more supervisors in that were actually not exempt, but they weren't. They just cleaned it up with extra.
They're not on salary.
No, they're hourly employees. And that's fire and police.
It's your captains, detectives, and sergeants. And lieutenants.
So we'll keep that.
What we do now.
Okay.
That was the 2 I had.
Mr. Kelvin is not here, so. April. And item 16. Right.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Nothing.
Nothing at this time.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, this was talking to Carlton. Okay, Mr. Hart asked me about Oakland Road. I am looking into that situation and talking to Mr. Curtis. His last action was actually getting with Mr. Carlton, but he subsequently resigned, and so he left it open. And I have been trying to get with the county attorney to discuss it, and I'll just continue trying on that aspect. So I didn't have any new updates, but by the next council meeting, I should have.
Pete, would you say that?
I don't have anything.
Yeah.
To address Ms. Landry's question at the last meeting about the line extensions budget not having been spent, that was basically that 330,000 was placed in there for potential apartment expansion in the city of Gary, some of which never came, some of which were found other budgeted ways to deal with it that the city didn't have to pay for. But that's what the majority of that budget was for. It's just in case if we needed to do anything with that, none of it happened really.
I've seen somewhere, it also talked about the well.
I'm not sure about the well being on that. I think the possibility of running some lines to the new well location were part of that, but that, since it hasn't happened yet, it's just not in there.
So it got budgeted and then nothing happened. We were hoping
Yeah.
things would move faster, but
We'll more than likely need to carry over the majority of that budget to next year, just in case, because there are some projects that will need that still. But until they move forward with the apartments potential, we just don't know.
and we can always make it a budget amendment at the time if one of these subdivisions choose to come in. So we can always deal with it at that time. But he's gonna have a heavy extension. But it might not be the 350,000.
You pay for those apartments, I think.
But they have to pay for their infrastructure for the most part.
Right. Is there?
Oh. After,
Yes.
well, last, so we talked about the service part repairs, the bathroom and the showers.
That's out for bid, y'all have that.
All of it out for bid.
That'll be up at next meeting.
And the refrigerator, they're off.
They're being ordered.
I'm going to Lowe's tomorrow with the PO and the credit card.
Yeah, we had some online ordering issues, put it that way, so Penny's gonna take care of that in person.
Yeah, we're getting a standing, freestanding freezer, or freestanding fridge.
Okay.
And they are residential grade. And it's 100,000 a piece. And
Wow.
yeah, and that'll suffice just fine.
How much?
1,000.
Oh, I thought you said 100,000.
Oh, God, no. It's worth more than. Yeah, exactly. But no, 1,000 each, and Andrew said I can waive the delivery fees, he'll come pick them up. Whenever, it's gonna be 10 days or so before they get delivered, I've heard. So everything's on order. Thank you.
I'm not sure if we tabled this earlier or not, but, I think it was Ward that asked about the franchise agreement with Comcast.
We've worked on that, and it's been a bear getting a human being. I had to go online and talk to the chat thing finally, because it's in that same loop that Danielle told me about, like, I need your account number. I need your account number. Are you a new customer? And so I said, this is about franchise fees. I need to speak to a human. I need to speak to a supervisor. So then another chat bot got back to me and said, we will forward this to the correct person. Okay, fine. Then a human being called me from Tallahassee, and he said, well, this isn't our department. I don't know anything about franchise fees, but I'll get you somebody else. So then someone else called, and they're not really sure. And then I haven't heard any more about it, but I do have a phone number at least.
Some our current contract agreement.
It's not, okay, the way the community, I had to refresh it. The state pays us due to our addresses, the communication surcharges. We don't have any direct contact. So all of our various cell phones and email services and all that, they're paying something to the state. And then the address data log that, Amy keeps, like our police and fire state monies is all based on this address database. And so all these insurances and communication things are paid to us from the state. And do we get an audit of what it is? Nope. So I don't know if we even have really any authority, because John looked at the contract, it was from like 87 or something.
Wow.
And there's no teeth to it because there's no franchise fee. But it's kind of like the Waste Pro deal. You get the robo, if you're lucky to get a human being and someone to answer their phone, and this is just part of our new reality, unfortunately. But, you know, I don't think they even care about a fee with us because what's stopping them? I mean, Fairpoint might want to put in something, I don't know. So I'm working on it, but it's kind of sad. No, nobody knows nothing.
He's trying. I'll put that down. I know.
Yep.
Budget.
I've got some numbers, put them on John's desk. I'll be honest with you. Since we're using ARPA money for our capital outlay, it might be really good news.
Did you find out whether it's obligated or spent?
I did not, and there's not really a phone number to call for that either.
Yeah, I don't know how you find.
It's, it just reporting. You have to do facial IDs to get in there, to get the computers. So I'd rather just spend it and be done with it.
Yeah,
Because the second distribution, the 1.7 we got in this last fiscal year. So we've still got a three-year window on that. So we're gonna be fine. Spending most of it this next fiscal year, and then if a little dribbles over to 25, that's not gonna take our birthday away. So, but I was crunching the numbers, and I was even making transfers, trying to eliminate the water department, and if they have some hundreds of $1,000s left over and they make a few transfers, we shouldn't have to say anything. But the following year, reality will be back. So I'm just
you
saying,
know, to solve that problem, this is the state creating. They need to change the maximum franchise fee, utility tax and all that. And just take care of it.
and make more police and fire districts. It's a sad thing, but you know, I mean. And yeah, and we could max out, we've covered this in other meetings, but we could max out our millage at 10, which illegally can't step up that much all at once from the middle sixes that we've been hovering in for years. Even the 10% mill would only give us like a couple $100,000 more. It still wouldn't cover the police department all by themselves, let alone admin, finance, legislative, the attorney, street department, comp planning, the building services. So none of that would be financed. That's all in general fund.
I want to thank Brittany for getting us we have now a new code.
She's done an excellent job.
Yes, and I really appreciate that.
And she'll provide updates for you when they come, and then you just remove the page.
Okay, great. That was my next question.
Yeah. And more, you good? All right.
I'll print it out like this.
I saw it. And then I was like, well, I'm interested in what they were talking about. I didn't.
Trying to rent it out.
Oh, no, it was, I mean, she had mentioned, but it was the options.
I'd rather rent it out. Good. This is one like office hours for us, right? Really?
Well, she suggested.
As your role. Okay. We'll get with Penny and, you know, application, I reckon. I don't get two of them last week. Little under and social.
She said like $200.
It might be. Ain't a whole lot.
Does it include utilities or you have a back in it?
You would pay.
As well as the people.
Yeah, I told her. I was-
Talking about just your own salary thing. I just make that whole.
Originally, she was talking about that, but then she was like, what about you? I'm like, that was-